Hi everyone, I'm Nadia and I'm with Avneet, and today we'll be talking about understanding the assignment process.
Absolutely. Getting started on your assignment can literally be the hardest part of the task. But we'll be sharing some tips and tricks, so stay tuned to hear us out.
Yep, we'll also be doing a checklist of the things that you should include before submitting your assignment. So let's get started on our discussion.
So, Nadia, how on earth do you get started? Like, what's the first step you do when you get given an assignment?
So the first thing that I would do is to identify the question. So is it just a question, a quote, then a discussion instruction, a quote and a question, or just purely an instructive assignment? So that is important because obviously the question determines how we are going to answer the essay. So the second thing in looking at the assignment question I would do is that I would define the keywords, especially for a new concept. I feel that defining the keywords is actually, again, important to how you're going to answer the essay. And maybe, just maybe, that definition is relevant to be part of your essay, like you explain something is this, and then you start off like discussing. So the definition is especially important to be included, especially if like your lecturer expects the paper to be understood by someone who has never learned the subject. So the second thing is, as I said before, looking at the rubric. The rubric is actually a very helpful thing to look at before doing any assignment, as it tells you of what is expected of you from the assignment, how you can score a distinction or a high distinction, and more. It's all in the rubric, guys. Other than telling you of what is expected in the assignment, it also tells you which parts to focus on. Some assignments, like the one shown in the slide, clearly shows that some parts weigh more than the others. So for example, looking at the rubric, I would focus most of my efforts in perfecting the assessment of success and connection to the Constitution, as it is worth the most at 20 points. So that's all from me on the first things that I would do after an assignment is released. What would be your next steps, Avneet?
Well, next for me usually comes the background research. Now, the next step after you looked at your assignment, how to look at your rubric, the next step after this varies quite a bit depending on the type of assignment I'm doing. However, all assignments that have some sort of research component tend to be a similar ride. The trajectory that I usually take and that has worked quite well for me in the past is that I start by obviously reading the assignment task and the rubric, but then going into some background research for roughly, say, 2 hours. Again, this varies depending on the time that I have. And this involves going through reading, maybe just a general Google search, and going through some course content as well. Once I have that background information in the back of my mind, I then formulate a structure for my essay or my report. For example, if I'm writing an essay, I'll lay out a Word document and have a rough potential argument or thesis statement at the very top. I will then plan out how many words I can allocate to the introduction, the body, and conclusion. And I'll also try to formulate some sort of logical argument and put some notes under each of the body paragraphs to the extent that I can, based on the background information and course content I've accumulated. Following this structured development, I carry out more research to find evidence, examples, as well as explanations that are required to formulate a convincing argument. And after this, well, comes the final stage, and that involves ensuring my references are on point and proofreading. Now, this all sounds really neat and tidy. However, we know that it can be a bit of a roller coaster, especially trying to find reputable sources and reading them and being critical of them. But anyhow, this is the general route that I take. Nadia, you were mentioning you have a bit of a quick list that you can share with us that we can sort of check off before submitting our assignment. Do you mind sharing that?
Exactly. So like what you said in like the final part, what you do after you structure the assignment is that you reference and proofread. So that's exactly what I do as well. So going on from that, the first thing that I would do is I would proofread. So one of my tutors told me once that a good way to proofread is to print out your essay and read it. It feels different from reading it from a screen, and you can manually like edit it, highlight it as well. The second tip would be to get a friend to read it. It doesn't matter whether or not they have taken the subject. If they have, they can comment on your content and structure. But if not, they can comment on your structure and flow, which are, I feel, that important aspects as well. Another aspect of proofreading is checking your grammar and spelling. This can be done through applications such as Grammarly, which you can use for free. The second thing would be to focus on referencing. Are you using the referencing that is required for the course? If they don't have a specific type of referencing, check other things, such as making sure to sort out your reference list in an A to Z form and not a number form. I made this mistake too many times in my first year, and making sure your referencing is consistent and you are following the guidelines. I would personally avoid using automatic referencing sites such as EasyBib. Finally, the last thing that I would do before submitting the assignment is looking at the rubric again and making sure that you have included everything that is expected of you and that you are meeting the criteria. Aim for a high score. Finally, Avneet, do you have some final words of wisdom that you would like to add regarding doing assignments?
Look, at the end of the day, assignments and assessments can be challenging, and getting started can be the hardest part, as we mentioned at the beginning. And I always say this, and someone once said this to me as well, that assignments and assessments are best when complete. As for final words of sort of wisdom is, I'd like to say consult your lecturers and tutors for advice on course content if you're not sure, even specifics of the assignment. Seek their feedback and act upon it. And in conclusion, beat the assignment. Don't let it beat you.
Great concluding words, Avneet. I think that wraps up our session for today.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. We'll be putting up some more videos leading up to the exam period and sharing some tips and tricks for that. All the best with everything. See you later, guys.